Hey, we're two Star Wars nerds, and we're back with another book club video. Today we're finishing up Dark Force Rising. Yay. So good. We love it. We're excited to talk about the last couple of chapters with you guys and then move on to The Last Command.
Yeah, so what we're actually going to do with these moving forward, because we'll be able to produce them a little bit quicker, we're going to move these to an audio podcast. And so the goal is we're going to put these into an RSS feed. So basically what that means is hopefully you'll be able to get them on like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places you listen to podcasts. And we're going to go through these pretty much the same way, but hopefully at a higher volume. Just because then we can actually, we don't have a permanent space to set up, so we're back kind of in a pseudo space again. This place is pretty cool, but we're not looking to turn it into a studio. Anyway, with that being said, just be on the lookout. The Last Command, I don't know if we'll re-upload them to YouTube, but there's going to be an audio kind of chapter by chapter walkthrough of the book, which is pretty cool. And I didn't even think about this until Surfer Eddie, shout out to you, he said that this helped him kind of view books like chapter by chapter, like episodes in a book, which I'm like, yeah, it's actually kind of cool thinking of it like a book as like a season, you know, right. Which is cool. But we're going to go over the last few chapters here. So starting, I will say this, we've read this and finished it, took notes, didn't film, had a bunch of stuff for months and months. Right. And then we're like, man, we need it.
So we had to reread the end.
We had to reread the end. And we're going to have a video where we talk about the book as a whole. And some of the elements of the book are just kind of hard to remember. It's a really good book. But that may kind of contribute to not getting all the details fully. Right. But
so please forgive us if we forget some stuff.
And you can always reread, but maybe that's just kind of part of the beauty of it. But you start with, in chapter 25, you start with Han and Lando at that like underwater casino club, yeah. And it's really interesting. Basically, again, you have Niles Ferrier show up, which, I don't know, maybe the whole trope of like the warm seat, he was just here, the smell of his cigar, right?
We always smell him, that guy.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about that today. I'm like, is that like a poor detective kind of trope? Or I don't know. I'm like, how often do you really smell people that often and like feel their seat and be like it was warm? But anyway,
it works.
But again, they run into him, and then the Empire starts attacking the casino ship, all this crazy stuff, and it's very reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back, where like the good guys are kind of put into a tough bind,
right? And
it's always like, how are they going to get out? And then Han kills a Wraith, which is just pretty wild, and it's good action. Timothy Zahn has a good way of like building the action to a point. Then you find out Ferrier's after Lando as well. The Empire stops the assault, and basically chapter 25, it's kind of this worry about like, man, they're going after the Katana fleet. You know, the Empire, Thrawn, you know, that remnant Empire.
Right.
Any thoughts you have on chapter 25? Because I'll just go through just generally what happened.
Yeah, I think just generally go over, like, summarize these 25 through 29 and then...
Okay. And then chapter 26, you have Card and Phalia, and basically have kind of all these, like, interesting, like, exchanges and interchanges. So you have Card and Phalia, and they have just more of kind of the norm, where it's like Card is kind of like, he knows the power he holds over the Katana fleet, and it isn't playing Phalia's games.
Right.
And Phalia is basically like, we need to arrest, you know, like Luke and Han. And like, basically he's just all bent out of shape. And then Han and Leia have their kind of exchanges, and Mon Mothma. Basically, you have the New Republic they want the Katana fleet before Thrawn gets it.
Right.
And Card's kind of like not just allowing Phalia to have his way, which is good. And then Mara Jade, her dreams keep getting brought back up, where basically it's kind of that like last command that Emperor Palpatine gave to her, kill Luke. And so she's still kind of thinking like, man, maybe if I kill Luke, these dreams go away. But then she starts to have some distrust, even more so toward the Empire, regarding the fleet, because she's just learning more and more stuff, and she starts to maybe trust...
Eyes are being opened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she starts to trust the New Republic a little bit more. So we're seeing that. Even in 2 books, we're seeing that character development. Yeah, basically it's just a bunch of politics. If that's your thing, this is a good chapter. There's a bunch of politics and people vying for power. So in the middle of a war and in the middle of a battle, they're vying for power. And so then Luke and Han in particular are going to go out to the Katana fleet, and basically it's kind of like a Tatooine reference. Not that they're going to Tatooine, but they're basically going out to the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So they go out there, and they're aboard the Katana fleet. Basically, in this is where things, in my mind, kind of get a little blurred, because basically at the end, you find out that Thrawn has like taken the majority of them, and it's like there's only a little bit left, but then they have kind of like the mothership. So it's like all this stuff is kind of happening, and it's kind of one of these like, man, what's going to happen moments. But Phalia is ordering the arrest of like Wedge and Han and Leia and all this, and basically they just go against it. There's this whole crazy exchange that takes place, and then Han actually fires with the Katana fleet against Thrawn, and it sounded like, when I was reading it, I was like, am I reading this right? Like he's taking down, I don't know if he fully took down, but like messed up a Star Destroyer. Yeah. Like, and they're even like a little shook, like, man, that's like the best we got, and they're messing it up. And Leia uses the Force. She has this really cool thing, which I wanted to hear what you think. Because she uses the Force to like press a comm button to expose Phalia.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah. And so then there's more war in chapter 28. Again, Luke even uses the Force to move like a walker, like a big heavy object, and it just, again, when you're thinking of this as a trilogy, thinking of this as Empire Strikes Back, kind of an ode to that. It's like, okay, so now his training, it's a little more complete, where he's doing something he couldn't have done prior.
Right.
And then you get crazy things, like you get Mara and the bandits, you know.
They show up
and they start attacking the Empire. You get Bel Iblis coming back. And
that
so
was cool.
You get this kind of moment where it seems like the heroes are all on their own, and even their people are against them, but then everybody shows up, this ragtag group. There's this really crazy like decompression scene where they like decompress to kill a bunch of stormtroopers. Pretty brutal. And then last chapter 29, the very last one. So like Thrawn and the Empire have like taken off with a bunch of the Katana fleet, and you have like the Republic has some, but they need ships because they don't really have money,
right? And
so they need ships. But it ends on this cliffhanger because you're like, what's going to happen?
And they find clones.
Yeah, they find out.
Because originally, like, oh, they have the fleet. Well, they think they have the fleet. Where else is it? I guess it would, and it doesn't exactly say that the Empire has it, but that's what it leads you to believe. At least I think. Does it say it?
Yeah, I feel like it said it a little more directly than I remembered.
Oh, okay.
When I was like reviewing
it.
Yeah.
But at first, like, oh, well, even if they have them, we have plenty of time because you need, like, what, 4,000
people? You need a lot of people.
But then they noticed the stormtroopers were clones, and they're like, oh, it's not going to take years, it's going to take months, and then that's kind of where you end.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, sorry.
Well, I mean, if you're here, it's spoilers, but yeah, basically they find out, and it's kind of giving callbacks to, like, well, it's not callbacks, but then in the prequels, you can see how, like, that thread is pulled through, although the prequels came after the book, in terms of, like, release order. But yeah, so you find out, stormtroopers, well, not all stormtroopers, those stormtroopers were clones for the Empire, so then it's like, okay, well, the stuff that Thrawn has been doing on Mount Tantus really matters now. And to my knowledge, they aren't really aware of what's going on there. They just know there's clones.
Right.
And then Luke is thinking about Mara, kind of like...
Oh, and then, he saves her. She's ejects.
And
then she's in, like, deep space.
Yeah, she's just in a super precarious position.
Luke's the only one who can find her.
Yeah, and really cool. And I think the most important thing that's going to come to a head in the next book is Joruus Sabaoth, or Joruus. He's absolutely insane, and he comes against Thrawn.
Yeah.
And is basically like, this is my game now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm taking over. And Thrawn's like, no, you're not.
But see, that could be what destroys them.
Yeah. Divided kingdom.
Yep.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting. We're going to have a whole video just going over the book. But for this end, if we talk about the end, I know I just did super high level stuff, but is there, now that we're at the end of the book, kind of what are your thoughts on how it ends? I know you don't like cliffhangers in particular, but I
really liked it, and I wasn't too upset about the cliffhanger because I can just grab the last command and start. I've just been waiting for us to record. That's the nice thing about reading it, 30 years later. I have everything. I don't have to wait. So it's really not a cliffhanger because we have it.
You don't have to wait years.
Right.
Yeah.
So that didn't upset me too much, actually. But yeah, normally it does when I have to wait months or years. Then I just bother until it comes out, because I need a resolve.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really liked the end. I really like... Because from my understanding, obviously I'm new to the EU. This is my third book that I've read. But from my understanding, Mara and Luke end up together eventually. Right? Yeah. So it's just interesting to see how they start in Heir to the Empire and see their kind of relationship somewhat develop. Like, she doesn't really, like, I won't say she likes him at all, but she's starting to not hate him, but then she's having these dreams, about kill Luke Skywalker, from the Emperor. And so it's just interesting, like, if you think back to the beginning of Heir to the Empire, neither one of them wanted anything to do with the other. One was trying to kill the other, and then to think like they're gonna work it all out somehow. And I'm interested to see how their relationship because how do you go from hating someone to being in love? So I'm interested to continue to see how that unfolds. And I guess I kind of wish I didn't know that they were gonna be together, because I think I would have been shocked. Like, shocked. I wouldn't have seen it coming. So you
don't want spoilers?
Normally I don't mind spoilers, but I think that would have shocked me. Just how Timothy Zahn has written and developed both characters. I'm not upset that I know, but yeah, normally I don't care about spoilers, but I think that would have got me. And I don't know when they get together. I don't know if that's resolved in the next book, so that'll be the surprise for me. But yeah, overall I really liked it. There's one interesting, I meant to highlight it and bring it up to you. Princess Leia is like talking about how she wants to like kill someone with a lightsaber, and she like has to like, she's like, and because she's so mad or something. But she's like, oh, that's not how we do things, essentially. Like, I can't act out of anger. I thought that was pretty interesting to see.
Was it Phalia?
I think so. I'm pretty sure it's when they're on the ship before the comm, before she presses the comm. But I was like, just seeing that side of Princess Leia, that was... Yeah. I don't know if she's Princess Leia anymore. I still call her Princess. She's Princess Leia forever. But to see that side of her, that was interesting. I was like, okay. Yeah. Okay. And then you got some mad self-control. Like, good for you. Because I can't imagine having that power. And, like, I just think about when I get mad. I'm like, I'm glad I don't have to restrain myself. Not that I've ever thought anything like that, but...
Well, and it feels... even though they're human... and it's alien, but it feels very human because it's like the stakes are high.
Yeah.
She's
hormonal and pregnant.
It's family. Yeah. And friends, and it's like the balance of everything, and then to be hung up on some jerk.
Right.
At the moment, from what I hear, who's just like no, I want power, and it's using that moment. Like I can see where it's like, man, I just want to like slice you in half, you know,
because she could.
Yeah, she could.
So that was interesting, just have insight from her, because she's always so diplomatic, but then you get kind of like okay, she's a real person, but not really. She's a character, but so I thought that was crazy. And then just interesting with the Katana fleet, and like just gonna see where it's gonna go. Like I have assumptions and ideas, I guess, but I really don't know like what's gonna happen next. But yeah, I think overall it was those last 6 chapters or 5 chapters, 25 through 29, however many that is. I really liked the ending, and I thought it wrapped up well, but also left you wanting more. Did a really good job at that. Like I felt like it was an end, but it was also a beginning, which is interesting. I feel like that's quite the skill, I guess, to have in writing. Trying to think. I really liked, because like you said, there's a lot of action in it, as well as politics strung through, and just how it's described and how I can picture it in my mind what's happening. I'm very visual too, so like in my mind I'm interested to know what these people like actually look like, because in my mind I know what there's a movie playing as I'm reading, and so obviously Luke and Leia and Han look like Return of the Jedi still, but so I know like in the comics and stuff some of them are, so I'm really interested to see what they I guess actually look like. But what I'm trying to get at too is I like how he writes, because it creates a movie and creates images in my mind, and there's a lot of detail. So yeah, I really, really, really like it. And I love Lando, like having Lando and Wedge. I thought it was super cool to have Wedge, and he was just so excited to be working with Luke again, because he's essentially was like, I've been bored. But yeah, I love Wedge. Wedge is one of my favorite characters, so it's cool to see, because we didn't really get any more of him. But in the book, it's cool to have. Awesome.
Cool. Well, we'll have a whole video where we talk about just the book in its entirety and give kind of our thoughts and opinions on it. But yeah, so this book club format will continue, but we're going to take it to audio podcast form. After the last command, we're actually going to go back into the prequel era. I guess a little bit before prequel era. No, it is prequel era. It's just not Clone Wars. And we're going to go through the young reader or young adult Jedi Apprentice series. So we're going to go through that. That'll be really cool. And those are short books, so we'll probably crank those out. But yeah, with that, we are 2 Star Wars nerds, and may the Force be with you always.